Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Right, the weekly discussion forum where good writing gets even better. On behalf of Group 10 Subgroup 4, I welcome you to this week's feature discussion, Beyond the Outline. Joining me today are our panel of academic consultants, Mr. Keelan Sylvester, Miss Michaela Phillips, and Miss Kamora Brown. I am Andrea Anderson. Today's discussion centers on Kyle's assignment, which has sparked quite the academic debate among Foundation 101 students. The question before us is simple. Was Kyle unfairly marked, or did his outline simply miss the mark? Our panel is here to examine both Kyle's outline and the examiner's feedback. Throughout today's discussion, the expert will explain why the examiner comments were justified.
Thank you very much for having me, Andrea, and it's a pleasure being here. Today's discussion focuses on one important question. Did the examiner make the right comments about Kyle's outline? So let's dive in. Imagine you're building a house. Before you can start laying the bricks, you need a blueprint. In essay writing, that blueprint is called a formal topic to sentence outline. What is a formal topic to sentence outline? A formal topic sentence outline helps the writer organize ideas before writing the actual essay instead of jumping straight into a paragraph. In other words, it creates a roadmap for the entire paper. What makes a good formal to topic sentence? That's a question. Let's look at the ingredients. A good formal topic to sentence outline include the topic to be discussed, a clear thesis statement, the subtopic, the topic sentence that directly support the thesis statement. Now, let's talk about the heart of the outline. The heart of the outline is called the thesis statement. A thesis statement is a single sentence that clearly expresses the main ideas, argument, or the purpose of an essay. It tells the reader what the writer will discuss and what the writer's position. It is found at the end of an introduction. So let's go forth and examine Kyle's outline and put it into practice. Kyle wrote the thesis statement. Universal secondary school education is a situation in which all learners have access to and are obligated to attend secondary school. First glance at this, it sounds correct, but there's a problem. This is a definition. It tells us what universal secondary education is, but it does not explain the shift that happens. Remember, the assignment clearly asks the student to explain the reason the shift towards secondary school education. So Kyle's thesis statement did not answer the question. A much stronger thesis statement would be the shift towards universal secondary school education in the Caribbean was driven by the need to protect educational rights, promote social equality, and response to global economic and educational demands. You notice the difference? This thesis introduced the topic. It used linked language. It clearly states 3 causes that will be explained in the essay. Let's look at Kyle's body paragraph. Kyle's outline was the obligation to honor human rights, the requirements to ensure social equality, and global pressure. There are certainly related ideas. However, there's one major issue. They are not a topic sentence. A topic sentence is simply introduce the main point of a paragraph, and support the thesis statement. They are listed as general topics. A strong topic sentence contains three important elements. Let's break it down. It's called TLP. T stands for the topic, as identified earlier on. The subject of the essay is the shift towards universal secondary school education. L is for language. These are words or phrases that connect the topic to the argument. Example, the reason for, influenced by, factors contributing, driven by. These words tell the reader exactly what relationship the essay will explain. Thirdly, the point. The point tells the reader the main argument that will be discussed. When these three elements come together, they form a very strong topic sentence. So the team has created some topic sentence that Kyle should use in his essay. So I have an outline here of a formal topic sentence that has the broader topic, which stated the reason for the shift towards universal secondary school education. Then we narrowed down the topic to three main point. Then we have the thesis statement that we developed that I explained earlier on. The shift towards universal secondary school education in the Eastern Caribbean was driven by the need to protect educational rights and promote social equality and respond to global and economic demands. And then the thesis statement is broken down further into revised topic sentence and subtopics. So we have the subtopics: protect educational rights, promote social equality, global and educational demand. So look at the subtopic that the team came up with. One, the reason for the shift towards universal secondary school education in the Eastern Caribbean was need to protect educational rights. Another contributing factor was the shift towards universal secondary school education in Eastern Caribbean was to promote social equality. And lastly, global economic and educational demand also influenced the movement towards universal secondary school education in the Eastern Caribbean. Those are the topics that the team came up with that Kyle should use in his essay. Move on to the conclusion. Kyle's conclusion was correct because it summarized the main idea of the essay. However, choosing the correct expository method is also essential in developing an effective essay. Michaela will talk more on expository methods.
The cause and effect expository method is a way of organizing information that explains how one event, action, or condition leads to another. Instead of simply stating facts, it focuses on answering two important questions. Why did this happen? And what happened as a result? By making these connections clear, it helps readers to gain a deeper understanding of a topic rather than just memorizing information. One of the strengths of this method is that it presents ideas in a logical sequence. The same way you would count 1, 2, 3, 4. It allows you to structure your information in the same way. It allows readers to see the relationship between causes and their effects, making even complex topics easier to follow. It also encourages critical thinking because readers are able to recognize the patterns, evaluate the evidence, and understand the different factors that contribute to particular outcomes. Now, we see this method used in many types of writing. We see it used in, academic essays, historical analyses, scientific explanations, and as you can see here, discussions of social issues. Whenever the goal really is to explain why something occurred and what resulted from it, the cause and effect approach is often the most effective choice. Now, if we bring this all back to Kyle's topic, the examiner's critique, it is clear why identifying the correct expository method is such an important first step when developing an outline. In this case, cause and effect is a much better fit than process analyses, let's say. The topic asks for what reasons caused the shift toward a universal secondary education in the Eastern Caribbean. That wording alone tells us the focus is on identifying the factors that brought about the change. The essay is not asking how universal secondary education was implemented, but which would require the process analysis method. Instead, it calls for an explanation of the reasons behind the educational transformation and the impact those reasons had. Choosing the appropriate expository method from the beginning helps ensure that the outline remains focused, logical, and directly aligned with the essay question. Now, I will hand over to Kamora, who will give us an in-depth look of the tease structure.
Thank you for having me. I want to quickly introduce one helpful tool that can guide us, the tease structure, because a strong topic sentence is the only starting point. One concern of the examiner was that Kyle's outline did not clearly use full topic sentences. So let's take one of his ideas and turn it into a stronger sentence. We could say, one major reason for the shift towards universal secondary education in the Eastern Caribbean is the obligation of governments to uphold every child's fundamental right to education. That already sounds clearer, doesn't it? Instead of just naming a topic, it gives us a complete thought and shows exactly how the idea connects to the essay question. But here is the thing. A strong topic sentence is only the starting point. The writer still has to build a full paragraph around it. That is where tease comes in. The first E stands for explanation. In simple terms, this is where the writer explains what the topic sentence means. For example, after saying that governments have an obligation to protect every child's right to education, the writer could explain that secondary education should not be treated as something only some students deserve. If education is a right, then every child should have the fair chance to continue learning after primary school. Now, once we explain the point, we need to back it up. That brings us to the next E, evidence or example. This is where the writer brings in proof. For example, the writer could mention Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says that everyone has the right to education. The writer could also refer to UNESCO's view that inclusive education means removing barriers so all learners can take part fully in school. These examples help show that the right to education is not just a personal opinion. It is supported by recognized human rights and educational principles. But we do not stop here. After giving evidence, the writer has to explain why that evidence matters. That is the evaluation or elaboration part. For example, the writer could say that because education is recognized as a right, governments in the Eastern Caribbean had a responsibility to make secondary schooling more accessible. This matters because the move towards universal secondary education was not just about changing schools. It was also about giving more children a fair opportunity no matter their family, income, social background, or where they lived. Then we come to the S, which stands for summary or link. This is the part where the writer wraps up the paragraph and brings everything back to the main argument. For example, the writer could close by saying, therefore, the protection of every child's right to education was one major reason for the Eastern Caribbean shift towards universal secondary education, as it supported wider goals of equity, inclusion, and national development. That kind of sentence helps the paragraph feel complete and keeps it connected to the essay question. So, what should we take away from this? Tease helps a writer move beyond simply listing ideas. It helps turn an idea into a full, well developed paragraph. Think of it this way: the topic sentence tells us the point, the explanation says what the point means, the evidence proves it, the evaluation explains why it matters, and the summary links it back to that essay. That is important here because Kyle's feedback shows that his outline needed clearer structure and stronger sentence development. I hope that clarifies some of the confusion.
Thank you, Kimura. As we wrap up today's panel discussion, I would like to restate that our group agrees assessment of Kyle's credit assignment. While Kyle demonstrated some understanding of the essay topic and identified its central focus, the outline and essay did not fully meet the requirements of a formal topic to sentence outline, and the expository method was not used correctly. Our discussion today demonstrates that outline is so much more than a preliminary step in a writing process. A well-constructed outline serves as the foundation of an effective essay by organizing ideas logically, establishing clear connections between the thesis and supporting evidence, and ensuring that each paragraph contributes meaningfully to the overall argument. Our comprehensive analysis of the cause and effect method shows how the outline and essay should be approached. When an outline is carefully developed, most appropriate expository method, the subsequent essay is a clear and coherent writing, allowing the writer to present ideas in a structured and persuasive manner. This panel discussion also highlights the importance of constructive feedback as an essential part of academic learning. Where would we be without it? Rather than viewing feedback as criticism, students should recognize it as an opportunity to reflect on their work, identify areas for improvement, and strengthen their writing skills. The examiner's comments not only pointed out the weakness in Kyle's outlined an essay, but also provided practical recommendation can be applied to future academic writing tasks. By carefully considering and implementing this feedback, students develop stronger critical thinking skills, improve their ability to organize ideas, and be more confident and effective academic writers. Ultimately, the principles emphasized in Foundation 1001 extend far beyond this single assignment. The skills of planning, organizing, and developing ideas logically are fundamental to academic success across all disciplines. Mastering these skills enables students to communicate their ideas more effectively, construct well-supported arguments, and meet the standards of scholarly writing expected at a university level. On behalf of Group 10, Subgroup 4, we sincerely thank you for joining us.